Welcome to today's webinar on recording standardized testing and assessment. My name is Elaine Boyd and I will be your instructor for this webinar. So this webinar will cover 5 different areas. We're going to be talking about test definitions, entering scores, importing test scores, printing reports, and then the assessment reports through the portal system. So just a few things before we get started. In preparing for this training today, for this webinar, I realized that the student assessment record table is not part of the school year maintenance, which surprised me. So when you add any test scores for the students through the testing module, those records will always be there. This file is always building. But then that raised a question of, because it's always there, you're not carrying it over from year to year, how do you pull in those test records from students that are maybe moving up from elementary to middle school or middle school to high school? And we have an operation. You can find that under the admin menu, and it is part of the inter-school data transfer. So in this example, we would have, where I am in my high school database right now, we would be transferring the middle school to the high school. We would set our student range just like when you're moving your students over when they're transferring into your new school year. This operation runs for immunization records, but we're going to be focusing on the assessment scores. So you can set a date range as to when you want to pull those records. So for your middle school students, it would be from their elementary date to the current date, because we're going to assume here that those records, when they move to the elementary school, they pulled forward their assessment scores from the elementary levels. So you want to make sure you get that date range of when the test could be happening, and set that date range accordingly. The first few times that you run this, you're probably going to have some new test definition records, or if, in the case of New Hampshire, I know they just added the Smarter Balance as a new statewide testing for their students, and you know, if you don't have that test version, MMS will prompt you to add those test definition records to your database for the high school. So you can have it either automatically insert those new test definitions, so MMS won't ask you, or it will prompt you, or no, we don't want those test records. We want just the definitions that we have already set in our school, thus weeding out any testing that a student may have taken that you really don't want to carry forward that record as part of their full assessment scores. And I did talk about student range, and then you would hit process. I thought that was worthwhile to mention that, because it is very different than all of our the majority of our other tables within the system. All right, so we covered the facts. Now let's go into how you can load defaults into the assessment module. Now I had all of my default test definitions. MMS provides you with the ACTs, the SATs, and then the SAT subjects. So the first time you come into MMS and you are setting up your testing module to import those default settings, definitions from MMS, you're going to come to Testing, Operations, Load New Assessment Definitions. Now I deleted some of my definitions so that something would show up here, so I deleted these 3. If you had everything downloaded that MMS provides for you, you wouldn't even make it to this message. You would just get an alert message from MMS saying that your definitions are all current and this operation is being canceled. As you can see, I have 3 that I could download. I have 1 selected now, holding down my Control key. It's not going to let me select more than 1. It will only load 1 at a time. So we select the test definition, assessment definition we want to load, and we hit Process, Process, and Process. And now I did hit that 3 times. It just hasn't refreshed yet. But now that I've processed all 3 of those assessments, I get the message now that there are no new assessment definitions available to load, and this operation will terminate. And I hit Enter. So the next thing we're going to do is how to add a new test to the Edit Test Definition table, which is where I went first. So if we go back to Testing, and this is more assessment editing jobs, and we only have 1 editing job here, and that's to edit our test definition table. Now you are going to see here all of the, I have some that I have created previously, but we have the ACT, that is a default from MMS, and the test version is the year, the school year that this version of this specific test was introduced. So we also have the SAT, and then we have the SAT subjects, and we have a couple here that I've played around with training that I've done before. I've started my Smarter Balance for New Hampshire, and so we're actually going to create another new one to add a new test definition to this table. We're going to click on the Add a New Record, which is that yellow plus sign. Now when you get to this point and you're going to be adding a new test, say a state-specific test, you will want to have all of the information on that test in front of you. Now if it's a state test that you are inputting into the definition into MMS, contact the folks at your state for the layout and the definitions of all the fields, and they should be able to give you that information. That will help you in setting up your test definition. Once grades have started to be imported in under this test setup, you cannot delete the or modify that test definition because grades are associated with it and MMS will not let you modify them. So you really need to do your homework before you come to this part. So I'm going to add my new test. So I'm going to click my plus sign. I'm going to have my test name and my test version. Test name is limited to 12 characters. Let's see, I've already done test, Elaine's. This is going to be sample. And test version, it's going to be, I'm going to put this school year. So the not school year, but this year. Generally, testing, they don't change very often, and to associate a test version with a school year or a specific year is usually more than adequate. But if your test actually has a version number other than a date, feel free to enter that in. So we're going to click OK, and now my sample is now here. Now to edit this, I'm going to have that test score, that test selected, and I'm going to click on the Edit Test. So this is our main level for the for this test that we're entering in. We have our test name and test version. We can see these fields. We cannot edit them. They are grayed out. We can indicate the test type, so whether it's a national level test like the SATs or the ACTs. We have whether it's a statewide, so for Pennsylvania that would be the Keystone. For New Hampshire, that would be Smarter Balance. So we're going to create a statewide test. We also have district and school. So if you do any sort of assessment testing in your school that's specific to just you, you can create that that test definition and be able to import those scores. So I did say this was going to be a state test. So we're going to tab, and the labels to print on reports. So when you are pulling in this information to the transcripts, permanent transcripts, it's going to pull this label information and not the test name of sample that we put there. Most of the reports within the testing module will pull in this label to print on reports and not so much the description that we can enter in below. So the label to print on reports is limited to 12 characters also. Let's see, we'll do New Hampshire sample. All right, so I can be a little bit more, well, we're limited to the same amount of characters, but I am a little bit more and the description. Not that there would be any doubt that this would be a webinar example, but there we go. So the display order for this item, if you are entering in, you have a test that has different section levels as well as subsection levels. I'm a bit of an organized person, and I like everything to be in the right display order. And this display order for this item is how the test will be listed out when you see you know, pulling in that information in the reports and the transcripts. So you don't have to necessarily add it in the order because it will default to the next display item. So if I have 3 section levels and I add the section levels one after the other, those section levels are going to end up being level display order 2, 3, and 4. But if I have subsections that will be attached to each section level, those would default to 5 and after, which would give a really weird looking display order. So just be aware of that, but you can change the display order by just indicating the using the arrow boxes there. And I do want that. Now for this main level, you can attach scores to it, and these are the scores that we allow you to capture for any level of an assessment test. So we have the raw scores, the record scaled scores, the record percentage scores. We have the recorded percentile values, the recorded text values. Now, text values can be whether a student is indicated as being proficient, not proficient, satisfactory, you know, those wordy descriptions there, for lack of better language there. And then you can record the maximum values. Whether this level can be included on the transcripts, and it is specific to the level that we're on, that we're editing here. So I could indicate that I could not check this box, so this level would not be, the main level would not be pulled into transcripts, but the subsequent section levels and subsection levels. Now, if I am not recording any scores for this main level, then it would kind of make sense possibly not to include this in our transcripts. So for this sample, there is no overall score, and I am not going to include this in the transcript. So I'm going to leave all of those unchecked. Now I'm going to add my sections. So again, we're going to use our yellow plus sign to add our sections, and we're going to keep these pretty simple. So we can see that the test that we're editing, and we have our test section name that's going to be limited to 12 characters also. So we're going to have a language section. I'm going to click OK. I am going to add my sections all at once here. So I'm going to add another section, and this one's going to be math. Okay, and one more section, and we're going to make that one reading. Okay, so I have my sections, but I have no information on those sections at all. So I'm going to start with my language, and I'm going to edit my section. Now we're going to capture a lot of the same information that we had on the main level. So we have our test section name that is just display. We cannot modify that. The label to print on reports. We may want to, let's see, this is our sample, and it's going to be our language. We could probably put a P in there for sample. And we can put a description. Now the description, I'm not sure if I mentioned that before, that has up to 31 characters that can be entered for the description. So this is going to be our New Hampshire sample assessment language. The display order for this is 2, and that's exactly what I would want that to be. And here we are going to select all of these values, and this can be included on the transcripts. and I click OK, and now I could go through and do likewise with our math and reading. We have the same information here. I am not going to set this all up just because of time, but I am going to continue with my language section here. So I'm going to go back to my edit sections, and now I'm going to add some subsections to my language. This is as far down in the hierarchy that you can go, and you can see at the top of my screen here I have my main level, my section level, and my subsection. So there is no subsection. So we're going to click on Edit Subsections, and I can see here that my current subsection count is 0. So we're going to edit, and now we're going to go back to our yellow plus sign to add a record. And we can see the hierarchy developing here. So what would be a good one under language? Vocabulary. I'm not going to put spelling because I can't spell. Okay. So we're going to click OK. And now we have our subsection. And we could add in multiple subsections because you would have more than one subsection. Let's see what would be another good one for language. Vocabulary. Oh, that's not what I wanted. We're going to add another one. Language, vocabulary. Oh, goodness. I didn't think this out ahead of time. I guess we will put spelling. All right, so now we have 2 subsections under language. Oh, I just thought of another one. Grammar. All right, so now for each of these we can edit the subsections. So if I hit Edit Subsections, I can see the hierarchy. I can have a label. So this could be my SAMP. We're going to be getting shorter here. SAMP, boom, lang, and this is going to be vocab. And then we can be New Hampshire, sample, language, vocabulary. And we are going to capture all of these. Now you don't have to select all of these if you know what the test results that you are getting back, and we're going to touch on this more when we talk about the import, but if you aren't getting all of these different scores back from the state or national or whoever is tabulating or scoring these tests for you, this is where doing your homework ahead of time is important. You can indicate here that, okay, well, I'm only going to be getting back the raw scores, the scaled, and the recorded text values. That's all we're going to be getting. We're not going to get the maximum values. So you don't need to include those scores in your definition. And we have OK. So you would do that for each of the subsections here. So we're going to exit out of here, and we're going to click OK. There we go. So this is how you would create your own test definition. Let's exit one more time. And we have our set order. So everything came in with a test definition. and there they are. So you can see here that my language subsections are after my math and reading, and I'm that kind of person that everything needs to be in the right order and everybody together. So I am going to move down. So I'm just clicking on that gray box of the section or subsection that I want to move, and with my mouse I am dragging it down, or I could drag it up as appropriate for where I want it to display. So now I have my main level up at the top, I have my language section, I have the 3 language subsections following that, and then I have my 2 other incomplete sections following my language section. So you don't have to get hung up with those setting the correct display number. Once you have all of your sections and subsections added, you can come in here and set the display order. So we're going to set OK, and we are all good there. All right, so now we are going to cover the entering scores. Now the assessment, let's close out of here. Now, for those of you who are familiar with MMS generations, most of our student editors, or just about all of our student editors, have a quick shortcut key to enter to get to that student editor. So for Biographical, Student Biographical Editor, I would just click on the Bio button. Assessment doesn't have one of those nice little shortcuts. So get to the Student Assessment Editor, we would click on the Assessment Reporting Jobs, that testing button, and go to the Edit Student Assessment Records. So this file menu path is set up the same as all of our other menu paths, that the Student Editor is the first option in this menu. So I click Enter on that. Now there's a lot going on here. Just to review, this blue field here is going to show all of the student basic biographical information. So we see their address, their ID number, homeroom, the year of graduation, their age, status, whether they're active or inactive, and phone number. If I click on the camera, I'm going to see the student profile, which is a little bit more information on that student, plus their contact information. And if I see that printer icon there, that means I have a report available to me. And we'll get to that in just a minute. So here we see all of our test scores, definitions. We should be able to see there's the sample that I just created. My other ones didn't have, I didn't finish editing them, which is why they're not showing up here. So here are all of our test definitions. We'll come to this in just a minute. We can view the student's history. So if I click on View History, and I can see Amy's been with us for quite some time. She first took the SATs in 2007 and 8. If you haven't indicated our sample database here, we kind of roll our students over year after year after year. So Amy has been around for a while. She's had a couple of birth date changes too, just so that she's not 30 years old and still being in high school. So these are all the tests that she's taken. I can see here that some of my tests don't have a date associated with that. That's not good. I can see here that she's taken the ACTs, Keystone, and that is it. Now to edit a test that a student has already been entered for, so this would be to modify an existing record, we need to come to the history and we need to pull some information here. We need to know what grade level she was at. So we're going to pick on the ACT here. So we're going to pull up the ACT. We need the test date. So that was 09/27/2010. I think her grade level back then was 09. And the school year that was actually entered in. Oh, that's all they want. Grade level, that would be grade level of 10/11 for the school year. All right, so if we close out of here, so we're going to go back up to the top of our list. We're going to do the ACT, the composite, grade level. These fields are required. So I do believe she was in the grade level of 9. Her date was, now when you're adding your date, MMS likes the full 2-digit month, 2-digit year, 4-digit year, and a 2-digit day. When you are typing in, it's very often that you will miss that first space, and when you type in 09, the 0 will go in the month and the 9 will start filling out your day field. So just be aware of that. So that's 27 and the date was 2010. School year when taken, that was, scroll up here, that was 10/11. When you set the first year, it will automatically add 1 and display the appropriate second year. Now we have some options here for either entering or editing an existing test. The first one is whether you want to edit the main test record items. And this includes 2 other fields that are not available when we set up the test definition. And they are the test accommodation and test accommodation notes. So we are going to click that just so that we can see that. And then we have the option of ignoring tests on other dates. So if Amy had taken the ACT's composite, which is what I have selected, if she had taken those this particular test more than once, when we get into editing that record, MMS will prompt us if we want to look at those other records. We have the option of just ignoring those other dates, and I don't have an example of Amy taking this exam more than once, so that message won't pop up with me. So whether I hit ignore other dates or not, we're not going to be bothered with that pop-up. So I'll check it anyway. So now we're going to enter scores, and we can see here the scaled score and the percentile score. I'm not seeing the other, I'm not able to enter for those others because when I set up this test and this test definition for composite for the ACT, I did not enable, I didn't check those raw score, percent scores, or these 2 other. The only ones I selected was the scaled and the percentile. So if accommodations were made for a student to take this exam, say a student is right-handed and broke their arm and they needed somebody to record their answers for them, that would be a type of accommodation. So we do want to make note of when accommodations are made. So we would enter that in, and then here you would, Amy had a broken arm, a school staff well recorded her answers. And then we click OK. The next option is to suppress the score from the transcript, and it means just that. We are, even though a score is has been entered, we're going to suppress the score. The grade level when the test was taken, we can modify that if we want. The test date, we can modify that, and then the school year, we can also modify that. The previous section and the next section are not going to be available. Even though I know there are multiple levels to this, that is because, so if I return to my setup, my scores will be saved when I click on Return Setup. It's because I only selected one section of this test. Now, if I were to select multiple sections, and now if I click on Enter Scores, we're going to start with that composite level, and if I click on Next Section, it will get me through all of the subsequent sections and subsections. Now, so that is entering in records that have already been entered for a student. What happens if we need to enter in a new record for a student? So let's go down to my let's do SAT. Oh, she doesn't have SAT, so let's just do regular SAT. So we're going to manually enter that in. Amy wasn't happy with what she did the first time she took her SATs, so she went to another testing site that same school year and redid those. So it's not like we had a lot of additional students do that. So she got us a copy of what her scores were, and we need to manually enter those in. So we're going to enter in her year of graduation, and I think given our current school year, 2019, oh, she might be grade 10. The test date, we're just going to change that to 15, so she got her results back. And the school year right now is our 15-16. And we are going to keep that checkbox, and we are also going to ignore other tests on that date. So now she doesn't have this record currently, so we're going to enter our scores, and by entering scores now we have created a record for her. So we can enter in her, her information. I have no idea what realistic scores would be. Percent score, that one, 88%. And those, again, those 3 scores are the only ones that I have set active for the SAT critical reading. And if accommodations were made, we could check that box and then enter what specifically the accommodations were. So grade level, that is the default information that I entered in, so we're good right there. And now, because I have multiple levels selected, I can go to my next section so I can enter in her scores for her math. And you would just keep doing that. So now when I hit return to setup, if I go to view history, we are now going to see her SAT. No, those are old SAT scores. Her newer ones are going to be right down here. So these are the scores that I just entered in. Now, part of this view history, you can set a display records for a span of dates. So when that is checked, these 2 beginning date and end date boxes become available to you. And all right, so let's look at the report that you have available here. So here we can, we have, it's the student test record listing. So we can indicate which tests, which assessments we want to pull into this report. If you choose, you start clicking around and you realize that you really do want to select, go back to selecting all rather than exiting and coming back in, we do have an option here for you to select all. Do we want to include students with no test records? So if we have all of these tests selected for Amy and we know she hasn't done them all, it's going to display that information for her, whether she's taken that test or not. As with all of our reports, we allow you to enter in your own user-defined title. And then we click on print, and this is just going to pull up this for Amy. And so here we see that, you know, there are tests where she has no scores, and it's printing everything out. And she does have multiple pages here. And because this report was accessed through the student editor, we don't have the option of selecting a student range. But as you will see, this report is also available under the reports area of the assessment module. So before we leave here, there are 2 other options that I want to talk about. So if we go back to this one here for Amy, that wasn't a good one. View history, we want the critical reading one. Okay, we're going to return to setup. This one doesn't have a date, so that's going to be interesting to see what it does with that. All right, cassette record. I don't think it's going to let us do that. All right, so if you do have the ability to delete a record for a student. So if for this particular ACT, for the composite, if you want to remove this test section from Amy's record, you would just click on the delete a record, and MMS will warn you that you have a test scores associated with this. Are you sure you want to delete the test record for the ACT version 7.8 for this date? Yes or no. I'm not going to do that. If you want to just keep the test there, but remove the score, it's as easy as just clicking on the score you want to remove and then deleting the actual score. So now we're going to, so this would be probably more of the exception than the rule to be entering in test scores for a student manually one at a time. You will receive, hopefully, an electronic copy of the scores for your students when they take these tests, and we give you the ability to import them in. So to import in test scores, well, first we want to import in the definitions. We need to, again, that's going back to doing your homework if you are creating your own test definitions other than the national ones that we give you. So let's take a look at the import test definitions. So that is found under testing, operations, oops, and we have the load new assessment import definitions. I have everything all imported in already, and there is no editor that I can delete them, so I wasn't able to delete any. So when you come to this operation for the first time, you are going to get a list of the different ACT and SAT exams that we give you as default, and we give you the import definitions. Those files from those national level tests, assessments, are fixed. They're going to be the same for all schools and all states, so we are able to create those for you. Because I have everything, I can't import in any. But we do give you the ability to create your own import rules. That is found under testing, operations, import test scores. So here you see the three. I guess I could have deleted them here. Let's delete that one real quick. Yes. So we're going to exit, and if we go back to testing, operations, load new assessment, import definitions. So there is that SAT standard that I had deleted, and with that selected, I hit process, and it's already processed, and it's let me know that there are no new import definitions available and that I will be quit out of here. Okay. So let's go back to testing, operations, import test scores. So we can create a new import operation. So for all of those uniquely okay, say this again. For all of those tasks that you have created, you will want to be able to import those test scores into MMS. So you will have to create your own import operation. So to do that, we are going to add a new record. We're going to give it a name. So let's continue with my my New Hampshire sample. And here we're going to create a new line in the grid for each data element present in your test import file. So for each line item that we're going to add, we're going to click on the plus sign and we're going to give it a label. So if the first column in our spreadsheet that we get with the test scores is the let's call it student ID. So it's going to be a field type student ID. So the field type is the field that we would be mapping it to. So we see we have student ID, we've got last name, we've got student 1 through 8, so that would be student biographical information. Could be the state assigned student ID, it could be their date of birth, first name, last name, address, so forth. Then we have the test score. We have whether it's, and then whether there's a column that's going to be unused, whether it's a variable or test information. So that could be like the test name. So my student IDs are 7 characters long, so beginning column, ending column. So that's just the field length. We have the target field. So that would be the ID number for the student. And then we select the test. All right, I'm missing something here. Oh, because it's not a score. Never mind. I've done this one before. All right, so that's it for this. This is our student ID. All right, so let's add a, so this is going to be the, we need to worry. So this is going to be our raw score. So it's going to be field type of test score. That's how long it's going to be. Target field, it's going to be our raw score. And because it's score information, now we're going to select the test. And now we're going to go down to our sample, and that's going to be vocabulary. Okay. And then it fills in the test name, the version, and all the way down to the subsection. So you would just keep on doing that. So you need to know what the file layout from the people who are scoring your tests, what it's going to look like. So let's take an example of one that's already done for us. And let's look at the SAT standard. And we can edit the import rules. So here we have U01, which is an unused field. We have the last name, first name, middle initial, gender, birth date, social security number, and then here we have the test date, and then here we have the different scores. Now, if you do edit one of the tests that we give you the import rules for, all you have to do is delete it and go back and import, and then you'll be all set, and you'll start fresh again. And it is my understanding that the SAT is changing their format for next year, and I will be inquiring with development as to whether they are going to give you all the new layout as a default to download. The next thing we're going to look at is the actual import operation. So that is found under Testing, Operations, and Import Test Scores. So here are our rules that we have created. My New Hampshire sample isn't done yet, so I'm going to pick on the ACT standard. I have a test file that I've been playing around with. So we're going to select our import file. And these are the different file types that you can import in. So you can have a table, which is a DBF extension. We have several different text file types. We have text with delimited with tabs, delimited with commas, spaces, and then we also have the system data format, which I'm currently selecting right now. We have the CSV, which is the comma separated values, and then we have 3 different versions of Excel. From what I've understood from other schools with doing any import operations into MMS Generations seems to prefer comma separated values. So if you do receive the information as a as an Excel spreadsheet, it's very easy to save as when you're in Excel to save it with a an extension of CSV. So I am going to find my test file. So if you are uploading information, if you are hosted by Computer Resources, you're a MMS online customer, hopefully you already have access to a local drive on your personal computer, and you will be able to get to that point. If you do not, you would have to work with our implementations manager and have upload your test files to your FTP folder, and then he would move them into the appropriate folder so that you can import those scores. But you really should have access to your local drive. Mine is actually right here on my server. Let's see where, there's my test import. And we're going to click OK. And you can preview your import data before you import. Now I happen to know that I have the first record in my table that I'm importing in is my headers. So I am going to tell MMS to ignore that first line. But let's take a look at the preview. Preview is important. I must have selected the wrong file because you can see here that this is a mess. I have my 01 field, and that looks like it's taking the first 2 characters of my last name. My last name is now my first name, and everything is, well, not everything, but it's not where it should be. This is actually student ID number. So being able to preview this is very important before you import, because if you don't have everything set up just right, you're not going to be happy with the results. I thought I had one that was set up better than that. Oh, that's why. Okay. No, cancel. Mine is actually an Excel file. I can't remember what I called it. So let me pull that information up. Do it by sort order. Would have been test import CSV. Well, all those changes I made last night didn't save. Never mind. All right, so we're not going to take any time. I had made changes. All right. Well, that's unfortunate. Although the changes weren't complete. So I did have a CSV, and let's go back, grab that unfortunate record, and so the preview is not good. So we're going to click OK, and we can set default values. So before we not process, because I'm not going to enter this in. So we can have the ability to enter in some default values. So if a test date is missing for any of the records that you're importing in, you can assign a default date. If a school year information, you can always use the same default school year, or you can calculate what the school year should be based on the test date. And likewise with grade level, you can use the grade level found for the student found in the current school year, or you can calculate what the grade level should be based on the school year and the year of graduation found for that student. So very nice. So that way your data coming in, if there's some holes missing, that can be filled in. And then once you have everything all set up, and by all means, I can't stress this enough, that preview this information and make sure that the information, the layout is the way it should be, and that everything looks appropriate for the import before you actually import things in. If you are adding a new test, a new assessment, and you're in the process of setting this up, and you are an MMS online customer, or even if you're not, have a copy of your database made so that you can practice and make sure that the import operation is correct and functioning as it should be before you actually import in live scores to your live database. Chris Cadu, our implementations manager, can set you up a sandbox database, a copy of your live data, so that you can practice on this. It will save him time from trying to undo the imports that should not have been done. Okay. Doing your homework and making sure that you have the information correctly from the state or from national when you're creating your tests, your assessments, and creating the import operation is very important to know what you're working with before you get to MMS. All right, so we are starting to run a little short on time. There are a couple of reports that I do want to go over before we jump over to the portals. Actually, let's jump over to the portals and then we'll do the reports. So we're going to exit out of here. We already did see one report. There's not a whole lot of reports in generations. I do want to make sure that we cover the transcripts though. So setting up making the assessment reports, it's only reporting available currently in the portal system. The setup as to whether you want to make that available in the portals is done in the administrative portal. So let me log in as my administrator. Oh, now everybody knows what my password is. The setup is really quite simple here in the admin portal. So we're going to go right to the assessment and we're going to configure assessment reports. Now the reports can be available in the staff portal. Make sure you are on the correct school. I'm going to go to my high school. And you can see what the settings are here off to the side. But I do want to activate my assessment report for my staff portal. I do want to activate the assessment report for my teacher portal. And then within the teacher portal, teachers may view either all students or only students in the teacher's classroom. So we're going to leave this as all students. And we're going to save our configuration. I mean, I didn't make any changes, so I could have left it as is. But if you do make changes, you do want to make sure that you save your configuration. And we are going to select our tests. Now this will only apply to the teacher portal. So if you want to give the teachers access to all of the tests possible, you would check that box up at the top and that is going to select everything. If you want to limit which assessment reports, assessments that the teachers can view, you would deselect that and then just select the tests you want them to see. There we go. And then you have a separate save configuration for that. And that is all for setup in the admin portal. So let's go and take a look at the staff portal. Now this report is also available in generations. So we're going to do the assessment scores report that is available in generations. So like with all of our reports, you can enter in your own report title. We have our student range. I am not going to leave it selected to all students. I am just going to pick on Amy, and we'll go through here. So I am able to do a shift click here. The student range operation is different in the portal system as compared to MMS generations. Going to click OK. So now I have 8 students selected. Here are all of my my test sections and subsections. So I'm going to leave that intact. I'm going to run this for all of my tests. I could run this just for a select few or just for one test. I have some options down below. I can report this on all occurrences of the selected tests, or I can limit it to tests taken during a specific date range. And I have since learned that 2007 is a good year for me to run this, because remember, we always are adding to that student assessment. So as long as you have had the data entered in for students, that's how far back that the information will go on this table. Do we want to include students without tests? No, we're not going to. I don't want to see a record for a student that didn't take that test. And then, do we want to start a new page for each student? The default is yes, and we're going to leave it that way. So we're going to print. And here is our report. So we see Amy. So the student name is in that blue field. So we see Amy's name, her ID number, her year of graduation, and homeroom. We can see the different tests. So here we have the overall information. So we have the test name, which is the top line column heading here. We see the version. So it's the version that was available in the 2007 and 8 school year. And the test date is 9/27/2010. The second line, the subsequent lines have the following section headings up here. So this is the section name, subsection, and the grade level of the student when they took that test, as well as a repeat of the test date. So if I scroll over a bit, we're going to see we have the several fields, types of scores that we can capture for each assessment. We have the raw, the scale, the percentile, the text, whether they're on average, above average, below average, and then what the maximum grade was. So we started with the, I do believe that was it, I can't remember, oh my goodness, was that the SATs? It was the ACTs. So now we have the Keystone exam. All right, now let me get back to be able to close this. So that was the assessment scores report, and now we can do the test score summary report. So for the of the students that I selected, we have a limited. I didn't select all of my students, so we could see the number of scores, the number of missing, composite, the number of scores, and so forth. So, I mean, my data is not very complete, so this is not going to be a very telling report here. But it does give a summary of the test scores for the different exams that I've selected for this report. All right. So this is the limit. This is what we have to view in the staff portal. So now let's log in as my teacher through the teacher portal. But you can't guess what my username is here. All right, so there are two areas where a teacher can view assessment information. Under Gradebook, Gradebook Operations, Gradebook Reports, sorry, we have the Assessment Scores Report. So it's that same report that we saw in the staff portal. But here it's going to automatically default to the students in the class that is selected right here. So we can see here that we have an enrollment of 11 students in my pre-calculus class, and that's what my student range is here. I'm not going to generate the report. It's the same report we just saw. So if I scroll down, you're going to see those same options, whether I want to do all scores or the most recent. Do I want to include students with no test records and start a new page for each student, and also my report title. It's not going to give me my, it will give me the test score summary report. So a teacher will be able to focus on those scores just for their particular class. I also have my assessment menu here. So here it's the same report, assessment scores report. But because this teacher was not limited to just their students, when we just set that up in the admin portal, we allowed my teachers to have access to all students. So you can see my student range is 500, and I am limited, I didn't point that out, under the gradebook version of this, we were limited to just the students in the class. Now we have all students, but we don't have that full list of all those test scores. I was able to limit which tests, which assessments I wanted my teachers to be able to view. So this is all that they have, just these 7 different tests. And the teacher does have the ability to run this report on just one or more of the tests that they have available. Now, I could have made all of my tests available to my teachers, but I decided to limit them. And we have the same options down here below. So 2 areas for the teachers, same report. One is under the assessment menu, and the other one is under Gradebook, Gradebook Reports, and assessment scores report, and that is going to be based on the students in the course section that is highlighted in the menu here for that teacher. And we're going to go back to MMS Generations and review some more reports. Because of our time here, we did start 5 minutes late, so I do have some more time. I am not going to go through all of the detailed reports. There aren't, compared to other operations, there aren't that many here. We do have the print student assessment record listing, which I do believe is the report that we saw in the editor. Yes. So we've already seen this report. So it is available so that you have a choice of having the student range. If we go back to testing, reports, we saw the report by assessment. That is the one that, is it loading? There we go. This is slightly different than what we saw in, actually it's very different than what we saw in the portals. So here, this report is run let me get my notes here, only one test level at a time, and for one or more score types based on a date range and for the No Child Left Behind ethnic groups. I have some settings here that I can recall that will speed things up in my description. It does save the date range when you save your settings. So I'm running this on my ACT test for English, and I can only choose one test level to report on, and I can only select one test to run this on. I can choose more than one scaled or score type to report on. I have my date range of when I want to pull the tests. I can report on all scores, the highest score, the lowest score, or the most recent score for my students. I can group the report. I can choose not to group, or I can group by a No Child Left Behind subgroup or by a grade level subgroup. This one is set up for the No Child Left Behind. I can include suppressed scores or by printing only score summaries. So my No Child Left Behind subgroups, I have my ethnic groups here. So this is a label that I have entered in. It will not allow you to select an ethnic code until you have the group name entered in. And then I have my subgroups. I have my economically disadvantaged, English language learner, migrant worker status, and special education status. And then we have also another other field that you can set in to subgroup on. And then we have a choice with the report layout. We can select portrait landscape mode. We can pull in other additional information of ID number, gender, and year of graduation. And then we can select 2 additional fields to include, and they will be limited to all things biographical. So there's my biographical table field list. I am not going to pull anything else in. And depending on whether you're portrait or landscape, you'll see those character used and characters available. If I switch to landscape, my characters available should jump right up, and it is. Now I have 66 characters. As I pull in those additional fields to pull in, that amount is going to decrease. So I'm going to select my student range. I ran this before, so I should have some results here, keeping my fingers crossed. So we're going to see actually 2 reports here. This is the student by student report. So this is reporting on the ACT with the scaled and percentile grades that I wanted to have displayed. And when I close that, the summary is going to display, and it's going to be based on the No Child Left Behind. So it gives you a way of taking a snapshot of which area or subgroup of students maybe need, maybe in trouble or need some additional attention. So the last thing I'm going to look at is our permanent transcripts. We do have well, let me just talk through real quickly the other reports. So we have the score range summary report. It will only print one test level at a time for only one score type based on the date range. You can pull in the No Child Left Behind ethnic groups, and the ranges must be specified, and that's it. So then we have our test definition listings. So if you are creating any unique assessments, you'll want to come in here and print out this report, and it will show the test information, so I can see my levels, my sub-levels, what scores I'm going to be recalling, and my print labels and my test descriptions. So very good information to have. And I just said I wasn't going to do any more. Oh, shame on me. So other reports, we have the test import definitions listing, and then we also have an easy test scores report and a user-defined test scores report / labels, which we will not get into at this training during this webinar. So we want to go to our permanent transcripts. Transcripts are available under the grades reporting jobs, more grade reports, and permanent transcripts. Now there are two ways of pulling in a student's assessment scores. The first one is big and obvious. We have a separate report. It's on our transcripts are one page, and you have the option of printing a second page and setting up the assessments here. So if we want to include that, we're going to set up our assessments options. We can select which tests we want to pull in. If we have these are all looking pretty uniform until I scroll down here. I do have, no, they're all the same date. If I did have a mix of dates here and I wanted to set them to a start date and stop date that were all the same, with that top record selected, I would hit select all, and all of my dates would now reflect that first start date in that first record. Likewise with the stop date, and if I click on here, we have different score types. So we can do all score types, only the most recent, the highest, or the lowest. If I set that to most recent and I want all the rest of my tests, assessments to reflect the same, I would hit set all, and now they are all my tests are going to pull in the most recent scores. So I have my 5 options here. We have the raw, the scaled, the percent, percentile, text, and maximum. If I want to pull in, I can, set up each test differently as to what I'm going to pull in. Or if I check the box up here, it's going to pull that information in for all of the tests that I have selected. And right now I have everything selected to pull in. If I wanted to deselect all and then go back and hand select which ones I wanted, I'm going to leave that as all. So all of this information will print on the back page of the student's permanent transcript. I do have the ability to just print the student assessment records page only. A nice record of all of those assessments. I can also pull in the assessments so they show up on the front page of the transcript. So to set that, I need to go to my Setup Selected Form, and you can pull the assessment scores into any of these 4 areas for the laser version. If I go to the continuous laser form and I hit select, it's just this one additional information area. So the assessment information is selected down at the bottom, choice number 4. So here is our drop-down list of all the tests that we have, and we have which field we want to pull in. So I'm going to start with pulling in my test label and assessment options. We're going to click on that. We can indicate the starting and ending date range. We can pull in only the most recent, the highest or the lowest. I'm going to do the highest, which doesn't really apply to my test label. We can see the field length there is 13, and then we're going to add that field, and it shows up on our line here. So now for this same test, I am going to pull in the percent score. Assessment options should be the highest score, date range, okay, and then add that field. And now it's been added. I probably should have added a space between those. Unfortunately, with the transcripts, you can't just delete what you've added. You have to clear the whole line and start over again. So that is how you would pull that information in. Let's actually recall my settings here. Select item. Okay, I just want to verify that I do have some assessment. Oh, that's low tech. So let's do okay. I'm going to change that range because my database is weird. Okay, so we're going to add our field. Now we're going to add 2 spaces. And now we're going to do our percent score and add that field. I'm going to click OK. Now what you saw here is a way of, for those schools that don't have the assessment module and they want to pull in those SATs. So these are actually fields that they're pulling in that are biographical fields and not from the assessment, the student assessment record. Okay, and we're going to deselect, and we're going to keep my fingers crossed that somebody has data. All right. Oh, we pulled something that Amy didn't have information on. So there's the label that we pulled in, but she didn't have any scores. We have the second page assessment. So here we have her scores that we've pulled into that assessment page. Let's see if we get lucky with another student. Nope. And my other students didn't have any assessments entered in for them, which is why that second page didn't print. So I think I've covered everything. use great care when creating your tests. If you do not have, once you start entering in information for your students, the test scores, the assessment scores, you will not be able to modify that exam, that assessment score, assessment anymore. MMS will tell you that, you know, there are grades being entered in, and it will not allow you to change those. So make sure, double check that you have, print out those reports that show the test definition and also the import, and make sure everything is correct. Work with the agency responsible for administering and scoring the exam, the assessment, so that you get the correct information. Once, like I said, once you enter in scores for students, if you try to modify or delete that assessment, MMS will not allow you to do that. So this is a wonderful tool that you have at your fingertips, and it's a great way of being able to track your students. I hope you found this information informative and hope to see you at another webinar.